afternoon, everyone. Whoa, what the hell are we doing here? Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, what do we got? Here we go. There we go, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. President Trump gets handed major victories by the Supreme Court. Major wins, not only in terms of religious liberty and fighting back against the ridiculous LGBTQ agenda, but on the nationwide injunctions as well. President Trump just had a press conference for about an hour, which actually matches the totality of what Joe Biden was able to do during his presidency. We will go over each and every one of those. Also, Trump confirms he has reached a trade deal with China. We'll go over that with you guys. This is wild. Scotus in a 6-3 decision sides with Bobby Kennedy and his task force. Big stuff happening coming out of the Supreme Court. I'm sure more will even be dropping throughout the day today. Also, we're going to go over the big, beautiful bill. Big, beautiful bill. What all is in it? What all is in it? Everything you guys need to know as we reach just about a week until Trump's deadline to get it signed. Also, 50 Cent out of South Jamaica, Queens, has got a message for Zoltan Mondani. Get the hell out of New York. Get the hell out of New York. And at the end of the show, Project Veritas has dropped a very sad video about a pastor who, well, this is what we knew would happen. This is what we knew would happen when we allowed this radical trans stuff to go on. Before we get started, guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. Let's address something real quick for the LFA audience. Mike Crispy, everybody likes the clean shaven. Everybody likes the clean shaven. They say I look younger. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. I don't really know. Chat, what do you think? Chat, I want to know what you think about it as we get rocking, as we get rolling here at the 1 p.m. hour, rumble.com/LFATV. Let's put that live chat back up onto the screen as we get going, guys. Do me a favor and head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. You guys can use promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. I wish there was a way to run a poll. in the Rumble chat to see what you guys think. I'm just going to have to keep up here. Younger and slimmer. I could certainly use help in both of those departments. Palumbo says everybody says I look younger. Baby Finster. I don't know what that is. One person said I look like Stewie. I don't know how I feel about that. To the person who said that, that wasn't very nice. Raphael says I look cute. Too many. All right, the ladies are liking it. Ladies, let me know. Mike is nuts. Mike Crispy is absolutely insane. Yeah, you know what, guys? Hazel, I like that. 1 for beard, 2 for clean shaven. All right, let's do that. 1 for beard, 2 for clean shaven. Let me know what you think. I am curious. You know what? We'll throw a second one in there. Also, guys, if you want to support this network and everything we've got going on, head on over to LFATV.us. That's LFATV.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFATV related. Check out the LFATV store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming monthly donors over at LFA. Wow, there is no clear answer here whatsoever. I'm surprised Bad Moon hasn't put a 3 in there yet just to be a pain in the ass. I'm surprised. Bad Moon, you're letting me down. I'm waiting for a smart-ass answer from you. Waiting for that. Let's dive on in there. I don't know. Guys, I can't figure out. A lot of 1s and 2s. A lot of 6s and 7s. Let's get rocking. Let's get rolling here. So, the big breaking news of the morning is the nationwide injunction the Supreme Court has ruled on this one against nationwide injunctions. On Friday, the state Supreme Court, this from the Post Millennial, ruled in favor of the Trump administration in its attempt to block a lower court's nationwide preliminary injunction against President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. Now, I want to be clear. That does not mean we end birthright citizenship yet. We're going to dive into the ruling a little bit more. The court wrote in a 6-3 decision, universal injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has been given to the federal courts. The court granted the government's application for a partial stay of the injunctions entered below, but only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff with standing to sue. Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote for the court that one study found that there had been 127 universal injunctions issued between 1963 and 2023, most of which were issued under President Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. Bottom line, the universal injunction was basically non-existent for the nation's history. Its absence from the 18th and 19th century equitable practices settles the question of judicial authority. Basically, what she's saying is the concept of a nationwide injunction basically didn't exist for the first 180 years of the country. But in recent years, as the judiciary, particularly as the federal courts, have gotten more and more partisan, these things have been used more and more. The absence continued into the 20th century, rendering any claim of historical presence still more implausible. She also added, "We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument." I like that. All right, Amy Coney Barrett, got a little fire in you. Notre Dame. Which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this: Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Wow. That is lawyer talk for shut up, you drama queen. She also concluded the lower court shall have the ability to ensure that, with respect to each plaintiff, the injunctions comport with this rule, otherwise comply with principles of equity. The injunctions are also stayed to the extent that they prohibit executive agencies from developing and issuing public guidances about executive plans to implement an executive order. Yeah, so this is not about birthright citizenship in its exact context. It is more about the concept of nationwide injunctions. Basically, what does that mean? They're saying that an executive who is elected by the totality of the people cannot just out of nowhere be stopped because some federal court, some federal judge in Topeka, Kansas doesn't like it. Perfect example of this. A federal court cannot turn around a military aircraft that has illegal gang members on it. At what point, take this to its logical conclusion. Take the ability of judicial injunctions, nationwide judicial injunctions, to their logical conclusions. Imagine if 1945, the Enola Gay was on its way to go drop the bomb on Hiroshima, and some federal court judge decided, I don't think we should do that. Why don't you turn the plane around? No. You don't get to do that. Here was President Trump mentioning the injunctions in the press conference earlier.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively tried to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades, and we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together.
That's basically the point. You can't have, I believe there's 677 federal judges. One of them is going to be an insane leftist. You can't just shut down, because what that basically does is it stops us being governed by even a committee of elected representatives in Congress. It basically ends the concept of the president. If one federal judge can just strike down something they don't like. And moreover, this has happened like 100 times in the first 6 months of this presidency. Why? Because, of course, the media continues to make people believe that the end is nigh and that we're all going to die because of President Trump. Meanwhile, things in this country have actually never gotten better. Never been better. Oh, yeah, giddy up. Let's go. Here is Pam Bondi speaking on the injunctions as well.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts and 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer.
So, I want to be clear. Amy Coney Barrett has not been great so far. At least she hasn't been as great as we thought she might be. But in this ruling, she makes it very clear. Rogue judges cannot interfere in the concept of the presidency. Now, what you're going to hear from the radical left is, oh, this means Trump can do whatever he wants, and we're going to get no kings protests, and gaggles of ugly people are going to go out and protest in the streets. Hopefully it rains this weekend, and they get rained on again, and they all get pneumonia. Just don't get all your cats sick. We wouldn't want that to happen. It's exactly what's going to happen. But as Pam Bondi said there, only a few of the courts have issued so many of these injunctions, the most radical ones. I'm sorry, a district court judge on the west side of Philadelphia or in Austin, Texas, does not get to dictate the concept of foreign policy in this country. Moreover, they do not get to dictate the domestic policy in this country or how we implement what we voted for. You don't get to do that. And the court has finally struck that down. Here was Jonathan Turley on Fox News reiterating that point.
Does look like a victory for the Trump administration. Justice Barrett is saying that the only way for justices to exercise this type of universal injunction in some of these cases is equitable relief. But she does not find evidence that that type of relief was granted to these judges. So they indicate that the administration is likely to prevail on this issue. All of that is going to be awfully good news for this administration. They have been really hit with these sort of Lilliputian attacks. There are all these individual district judges effectively freezing federal policy and programs across the country. So it does appear to be a victory. It may be a bit more nuanced, but so far it looks like a good day for the Trump administration.
A good day for the Trump administration, but it's not only a good day for the Trump administration in terms of the judicial injunctions. It's also a good day for parents who do not want their children to be indoctrinated in schools. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Before we do that, Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, head on over to own.oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. Lock in some of these interest rates on certified deposits today before Jerome Powell is pressured to lower these interest rates and you lose them, possibly. Obviously, this is not financial advice for the lawyers out there. I'm just a big believer in slow, steady growth of your money. Guys, go to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. So, of course, that wasn't the only Supreme Court ruling that got dropped today. Also in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that parents can opt their children out of LGBTQIA2+ lessons in school. I still don't know what the last ones there mean, but what the hell. The Supreme Court ruled on Friday at a 6-3 in favor of Maryland parents who brought forth a case against the Montgomery County Board of Education members over LGBTQ books being read in class to their children. Parents challenging the board's introduction of LGBTQ+ I hate that I have to keep saying all those letters in a row, inclusive storybooks, along with its decision to withhold opt-outs, are entitled to a preliminary injunction, the court stated. Today, we hold that parents have shown that they are entitled to a preliminary injunction. A government burdens the religious exercise of parents when it requires them to submit their children to instruction that poses a very real threat, undermining the religious beliefs and practices that parents wish to instill, Justice Alito wrote. The board's introduction of LGBTQ inclusivity, and look, I want to be clear. Before I even get to this, because people suck. These are not like books with gay characters, okay? This is a book like Genderqueer, which explicitly has I don't even want to say it. Has a guy doing things to other guys in photographs. It's basically animated porn. Things like that. Parents have a right to opt their children out of. Boy, those religious radicals on the right. And I want to be clear. I want to make it very clear. And I mean, obviously, I would be far more in favor of this as a former teenage boy. But if they were reading letters in Penthouse, that would be a problem as well. That would be an extreme problem as well. back to the article from the Post Millennial. The board's instruction of LGBTQ inclusive storybooks, did I read that already? Along with the withholding of outputs, place an unconstitutional burden on parents' rights to exercise of their religion. The parents have therefore shown that they are likely to succeed in the free exercise claims. They have likewise shown entitlement to a preliminary injunction pending the completion of this lawsuit. In the absence of the injunction, the parents will continue to be put in a choice. Either risk their children's exposure to burdensome instruction or pay substantial sums for alternate educational services. As we have explained, the choice unconstitutionally burdens the parents' right to religious exercise, and the loss of the First Amendment freedoms for their minimal period of time unquestionably constitutes irreparable injury. So what are they saying there? What they're saying is that many people have said this, and this is a preposterous claim made by the people who advocate for this crap being in schools. Well, just take your kid out of public school and put them into private school. First off, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to pay an extra $8, $9, $10, $15,000 a year for my child just not to be shown gay porn in 9th grade. That's number one. But number two, many of the private schools are doing the exact same thing. A parent should not have to be overly burdened by a public school system to the point where they have to homeschool their children. And I want to be clear, I don't have an issue with homeschooling as long as you can still play sports. Because I know damn well, if I was 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and my parents came to me and said, Kevin, we're going to homeschool you. And I'd be like, oh, cool. You mean I can sleep in? That's great. What time is football practice? Well, you can't play football. Yeah, to hell with you. I'm going to public school, okay? I want to make that very clear. Alito also wrote that while the case plays out in appeals court, the board should order to notify them in advance whenever one of these books in question or any other similar material is used in any way to allow them to have their children exercised from that instruction. Teach whatever goofy stuff you want, but you shouldn't have to put your child through it. Stands to reason. And like I said, no one's erasing trans people. No one's denying their existence. Many of these books have instructions on how to get onto Grindr, which is a gay sex app. Be gay, sing a song, do a dance. I don't really give a crap. However, some of the books being taught in school should not be providing instructions for teenagers on how to get onto these. Look, Grindr is a sex app, okay? It's not a dating app. And I got news for you. Tinder, also a sex app. Bumble, also one too. Hinge, also one too. Let's be honest. If you're on a dating app, you're on a sex app, okay? They call it a dating app because if they called it a sex app, nobody would go on it. Let's be honest here. The parents, who come from a broad range of religious backgrounds, filed the case against the school after their ability to opt their child out of the readings were removed. The parents' case saw dozens of organizations and officials file amicus briefs in support, including 25 states' attorneys general. The High Court was requested to rule on whether public schools burden parents' religious exercise when they compile elementary school children to participate in instructions on gender and sexuality against their parents' religious convictions and without notice or opportunity to opt out. Yes, once again, we're not talking, look, we all did sex ed, we all put the condom on the banana, we all laughed our asses off. High school. Elementary school kids? What in the sweet hell is going on here? Here was Fox News talking about that decision.
We were, Dana. So this brought together a coalition of parents of different religious faiths and backgrounds who said there used to be a rule in this particular school district that would let them know when there were books that dealt with issues that may be in conflict with their religious faith. Well, so many parents were opting out that the school board and the school district quit doing it. Well, 6-3 today in a decision by Justice Alito, they said these parents have earned at least a preliminary injunction. So while this case plays out, they said the board has to notify them about a book that's in question or anything similar so that their kids can be excused if it's in conflict with their faith. He says, as we've explained, without that, parents are left this choice: either risk their child's exposure to burdensome instruction or pay substantial sums for alternative educational services. Because at one point, Justice Jackson, during the arguments, had said, why don't they just go to a different school? Why don't you put them in private school or homeschool them? Justice Alito and others saying that's not practical for a lot of people. The dissent by Justice Sotomayor, joined by Justices Kagan and Jackson, says today's ruling threatens the essence of public education. She says it's not about bringing kids together to learn about a particular faith, but a range of concepts and views that reflect our entire society. Exposure to new ideas has always been a vital part of that project until now. The dissenters didn't think that the parents should get the opt-out. Justice Alito and the majority say they should.
Of course, it was Justice Jackson who came up with that preposterous figure. We'll just send them to another school. Well, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the DEI hire of the Supreme Court, not everybody makes $286,000 a year like you do as a Supreme Court justice. Also, a $4 million advance on your book that nobody's going to read in order to put their children into private school. She got a $4 million book advance. Who is buying these books? Who goes to, first off, what the hell is a Barnes & Noble anymore? I want to make that very clear. But who is scrolling through Amazon and they're thinking, I'm looking for a good read. I'm looking for a good read. Let me pick up the memoir of a woman who's only lived half of her life, by the way. You can't write a memoir until you're like 90 because you still have, like a lot of life to live, particularly when you have a lifetime appointment that you didn't earn, that you got via AutoPen. Not really the point. Who's buying this book? Show me one person who bought this book. You show me one person who bought this book and I'll buy it for them. I'm only kidding. I'm not doing that. But most people don't make $286,000 a year like you, Ketanji Brown Jackson, to send your kids to private school, because if there's one thing we know, it's that Supreme Court justices would never, ever, ever, not in a million years, ever send their kid to a Washington, D.C. public school. Yeah, wouldn't do it. It's always funny how the people who are the biggest proponents of public school always find a way to send their kids to private school. Very odd. Very odd stuff. Very odd stuff. But even when you can get to opt your children out of these nonsense lessons, Sometimes you've got to worry about even more nefarious people getting to your kids with this preposterous agenda. And I want to be clear, and I've said it on this show many times. I've said it up, down, left ways, and sideways. Of course, the press will never write about this. Hi, Dave Ambrose, you're a big bitch. I don't care. Be gay. Be gay, be a lesbian, be bi. I don't care. Be an adult, be trans. I don't care. I don't care. If the most interesting thing about you is who you're sleeping with, I absolutely think you're incredibly boring, and I probably don't want to be friends with you anyway. But it gets even worse than teachers. The people you entrust your children to. What would you do if it was your pastor who pushed your child into becoming trans? What would you do? Unfortunately, this one mother had to ask that question. Here's Project Veritas with a huge expose. It's about 7 minutes long, guys. Check this out.
I just want to say, if it was not Pastor Miller, if he did not put the wedge between me and my daughter was still alive. She would be still alive. I heard about Pastor Aaron Miller from DCF social worker. Aaron Miller filed a complaint against me after he saw my daughter only once for emotional abuse because I was refusing to affirm her gender identity due to my Muslim beliefs. Well, I'm not the problem. I'm the mother who tried to save her child. By judging from the papers which I received from DCF, I believe Aaron Miller encouraged my daughter not to have any contact. It's pretty scary to have your child in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, and even in college, because groomers are everywhere, and now we know they're in church as well. My name is Elvira Said, and I would like to share the story of my daughter, Eileen Said. And I'll start my story, how it started. How Aaron Miller filed a complaint against me for being an abusive mother. On October 27, 2023, I was driving to Rider University in New Jersey. It was a family weekend in the campus, and it meant to be a surprise visit for my daughter. I grabbed several plates of her favorite biryani, good biryani from Pakistani store, and I also had some pomegranate seeds, huge container, just the way she liked it, and some popcorn snacks. I saw so many parents having fun with their kids, and I was looking forward to having the same thing with my daughter. But she took forever to open the door. And when she did, it was a stranger standing in front of my eyes. No hi, Mom. No hug, no kiss. So distant. Just a question, what are you doing here? When I agreed for Eileen to study in out-of-state school, we had an agreement that she would be focused only on education, not on gender identity. But what I saw on that day, it was a child fully consumed by gender ideology. Somebody introduced her to Reverend Aaron Miller, a pastor from Metropolitan Community Church in Hartford. Apparently, my daughter sent him an email, and he saw her only once. And after that meeting, he made up his mind that I'm not fit as a parent. He filed a complaint against me to Department of Children and Families. His claim, I was emotionally abusive towards my daughter for not affirming her male gender identity because of my Muslim beliefs. Well, I'm a Muslim, all right, but does Christianity have the statement that kids could be born in wrong bodies? Can this so-called pastor show me the citation in Bible about that? I thought in faith it doesn't matter, Christianity or Islam, kids are taught to love and respect their parents. They're not taught to report to the state that their parents don't believe that their bodies are wrong. Aaron Miller accused me that I forced my daughter to wear female clothes. Back in 2022, when she came out to us as a transgender, I started to look for what to do. And the only option which I found online was just the affirmation. That's what the internet told me, that I had to affirm, otherwise my daughter would commit suicide. So we went along with pronouns. We legally changed her name from Eileen to Raven. She cut her hair, she dyed it the way she wanted. She had male clothing. She had her room painted, and in fact, one of the walls was painted as a pride flag. But what we noticed, the more we affirmed, the more she looked for validation. And if anyone misgendered her, even accidentally, in that case, she would have a meltdown. So, and at that particular time, I discovered her TikTok account, and in one of the posts she posted that she did not want to leave. So what was the point of that affirmation? What was the point of using male pronouns if she still didn't want to leave? After I started to read more and dig more into that, I found that we made a huge mistake, so I stopped affirming her. We went back to female pronouns. Erin Miller accused me in so-called in-home conversion therapy just because I was showing her documentaries about potential side effects of hormonal therapy. I strongly believe any parent should talk about side effects of any drug. Doesn't matter if it is testosterone, Tylenol. I call it parenting. Erin Miller calls it an abuse. And don't forget, according to the internet, Erin Miller is also a chaplain at Yale Pediatric Gender Program. The program which benefits from when young adults go through medical transition. So, was he trying to help my daughter? Or recruiting a new patient? Reverend Erin Miller calls himself a Christian, but I question what kind of gospel he's preaching. Because it's not a pastor, it's not a protector, it's just the voice and the system which tells kids that their problem is their parents. Well, I'm not the problem. I'm the mother who tried to save her child. On Monday, October 2014, I received a knock at the door of my house. Police people were standing behind it. And they said, my son Raven Saeed took his life. He was found dead, and his body was lying in the dorm for 4 days, undiscovered at Rider University in New Jersey. Thank you so much, Erin Miller, for this. Erin Miller encouraged my daughter not to contact with me. I believe that by judging from the DCF papers I received. It looks like he affirmed her that she could have free food and board at college and eventually get gender-affirming care, including hormones, mastectomy, and all paid by taxpayers. I just want to say, if it was not Pastor Miller, if he did not put the wedge between me and my daughter was still alive. She would be still alive. And he did not just file the claim against me. He destroyed the lifeline. He destroyed the family. And I'll never forget it.
I mean, what should happen to that guy? That's another guy I don't even know. I don't even know. You know, where do you go from there? What do you do? I know what I'd do. I know what I'd do if I was that woman. And I'm not going to say it on this show because I would like to, I'd like to keep my show. But I'm sure the chat can work it out for themselves. Whoever that guy was, Erin Miller in Hartford, Connecticut, Long Island, what do you think? Should we stop by this guy's church? See what it's like? Simple trip across the bay, across the sound. See what it's like? And I want to be clear. This kind of shit it doesn't go. It's not only on Aaron Miller. I'm not calling him pastor because I'm not going to degrade. I'm not going to degrade the church like that. It goes beyond that. These are the kinds of things we're being told aren't happening, and there's something wrong with you for noticing when they do. That kid was left for 4 days. You know what that kid probably looked like after 4 days? Decomposed, bloated. It's all the people on social media who affirm this stuff. I want to be clear, man. You know, that woman, you could tell by her accent she wasn't born in America. Probably thought she was going to come to this country and make a better life. Only for her daughter to be killed, be it by third party or not, by a pastor in a church 3 states away, all while profiting off of the procedure he pushed. Are you listening, Chris Murphy? Are you listening, Sheldon Whitehouse? Those are the 2 senators from Connecticut. Are you listening? What, isn't that lady with the blue hair from Connecticut? She might be from Rhode Island. Whatever, they're both the same goofy-ass place. Are you listening? Because I was told this stuff doesn't happen. Maybe this lady made it up. I don't know. All the people that promote this stuff, that force this upon kids, history is going to remember what you did. And I want to be clear, the internet's forever. Why do I fight so hard for this stuff? Because I know I'm on the right side of history. Because that 18, 19, 20-year-old girl would still be alive if and I only say Democrats because it's Connecticut, and Connecticut is run by Democrats. If Democrats would actually step up and just accept reality. But they can't do it. So we get stories like that one. Once again, guys, that video was from Project Veritas. Great work, guys. Great work on that one. Guys, we'll be back in 1 second. Before we do that, because I want to get to some good news. That's just sort of the way the show rolled in. I did want to get to some good news. Guys, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. Share it out everywhere so that everyone can see that video as well. Here's Jeremy.
Hey everyone, sorry to barge in like this, but I do want to talk to you about this opportunity for 45% off of everyday dose coffee. And this isn't just your regular coffee, folks. If you're like me, you love your coffee routine. I've loved my coffee routine since I was probably 16 years old. Unfortunately, as I've gotten older, some of the coffee that I love doesn't love me back and does cause bloating, does cause jitters, can only drink so much a day, and there's really only so much I can do with it. Now, everyday dose is known as coffee plus benefits. And what I mean by that, folks, is A, there is an ingredients booklet in there that gives you a ton of different recipes on how to make cold brew coffees of all different kinds, lattes, different hot coffees, and more. But the greatest thing about Everyday Dose is it is known as coffee plus benefits, meaning that you're going to have 100% Arabica coffee, and you're going to also have lion's mane, chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics that keep your brain focused. No jitters, no heart palpitations, and a ton of different recipes. And you're going to get a frother, a tumbler, a box set with a bunch of different gifts in it, an ingredients booklet for recipes, coffee, and more for only $27, folks. 45% off by going to everydaydose.com/LFATV. That's everydaydose.com/LFATV. Why not expand your experiences with coffee? That's everydaydose.com/LFATV.
Guys, head on to everydaydose.com and use promo code LFA. That's everydaydose.com/LFATV. So, let's get to some better news. Now that I ruined everybody's Friday with that. I probably should have closed the show with that and let Will Johnson make you guys feel a little bit better. But big news coming out of the markets. Now, we were told that Donald Trump was never going to get a trade deal done. He was never going to get a trade deal done. Never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever. But it turns out that's exactly what Donald Trump was able to do with Donald Trump announcing yesterday that the White House has confirmed a U.S.-China trade deal has been reached. This from the Epoch Times. The White House official told the Epoch Times on the 26th, that was yesterday, that the United States and China has reached an additional agreement as trade talks between the two nations continue. President Trump told reporters earlier in the week that the deal was signed on June 25th, but did not share any of the details, saying we're starting to open up China. Things that have never really happened before. When asked about clarification on the president's remarks, the White House official said the administration and China had agreed to an initial understanding for a framework to implement the Geneva Agreement and declined to provide more explanation. The initial agreement reached in May when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer met with He Lifeng, China's vice premier and lead economic representative in Switzerland, along with Swiss President Karen Keller-Schutter. At the time, the United States maintained 145% tariff on all goods coming from China, with Beijing leveling 125% against U.S. goods in response. The agreement evolved after further talks between both sides. He said, we're getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%, Trump wrote in all caps on July 11th. The relationship is excellent. The week's deal came a day after Trump announced that he would allow China to resume purchasing oil from Iran after leveraging sanctions against Beijing over the oil purchases in the last several months. This is big, big, big stuff. This is big stuff. Here was President Trump announcing the deal with China in the White House. Yesterday. Give me one sec. Boom, boom, boom. Come on. What are we doing here? Here he was announcing the deal yesterday.
A few months ago, the press was saying, do you really have anybody of any interest? Well, we just signed with China yesterday, right? Just signed with China. We have everybody. We're not going to make deals with everybody. Some we're just going to send them a letter, say, thank you very much. You're going to pay 25, 35, 45%. That's the easy way to do it. And my people don't want to do it that way. They want to do some of it, but they want to make more deals than I would do. But we're having some great deals. We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one, where we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened.
Obviously, if we were to open up the Indian markets, that would be absolutely tremendous for the American economy. It's a couple billion people that live in just those two nations alone. So President Trump continuing to keep his promises to the American people. This comes as President Trump announces we have taken in like somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 billion worth of tariffs thus far. And many nefarious people out there will try to tell you that, oh, tariffs are just a tax on the American citizen. No, it's only a tax if you buy it. Here's President Trump.
With the United States of America, we'd have money coming in like at levels that they have never seen. I got a call the other day from the people in Congress because we're doing our bill. I didn't even tell you this, Mike, and they called. They said, there's something wrong with the numbers, sir. I said, what's wrong? I don't know. They're not balancing out. There's something really wrong. I said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, we don't know. I said, what's the problem? We're taking in much more money than we have scheduled. I said, so far, that sounds good. They said, how much is it? About $80 billion. I said, do me a favor, check the tariff line They called me back an hour later. Sir, we've taken in $88 billion in tariffs. Isn't that a beautiful thing? $88 billion. I thought I'd tell these little stories. Go off script and tell these little stories, Scott, right? Because it does make it a little more interesting. Although my speechwriters have just gotten every award in the book. Vince, where are you, Vince?
$88 billion worth of tariffs, and that's even without having trade deals put in place with many of these countries. These are promises made, promises kept to the American people, and things are getting so good right now that even CNN has got to admit that things are pretty damn good. Before we get to that, Mike Lindell.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sale because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Guys, if you want to avoid the tariffs, and then look, just get your stuff from MyPillow. And when you do, use promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD for up to 80% off everything on the website. Look, some American-made companies out there, like MyPillow and like the loud majority, have not raised their prices on behalf of the tariffs because we believe in the policies of the Trump administration. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LOUD at checkout to get up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. Also, you guys can head on over to LoudMajorityUSA.com, sign up for the newsletter, check out our shop. That is the best way to support this network and everything, this show and everything we've got going on over here. Also, for the local audience, July 3rd, I will be at the Amityville Kiwanis Fair in Amityville, New York, on Broadway and 110. Come on down. It's going to be a great night. They're going to have fireworks, I believe. They're going to have a whole lot of alcohol. And you guys know I love fireworks, I love alcohol, and I love meeting all of you. So I'll see you guys there, Amityville, Thursday night. It's going to be one hell of a time. But the economy is continuing to pick up. And we're not seeing the sort of inflation rates that many economists predicted. Of course, economists, people like Paul Krugman, who have spent 35 years writing for the New York Times, being constantly wrong. I need that job. I need a job where I can just be wrong all the time. Wrong all of the time. Not every so often, but regularly. And still keep my job. So much so that now even CNN is admitting that the stock market's looking pretty damn good. Pretty damn good.
We're just minutes away from the closing bell on Wall Street, and the S&P 500 closed yesterday on the cusp of a record high. Right now, kind of flatlining, down just a teensy-weensy bit. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich joins us now with more. Vanessa, this is really impressive given where the market was not that long ago.
Yeah, really a remarkable story on Wall Street. We've been watching the S&P very closely all day as it has been flirting with a new record, the last one set back in February. But it is remarkable because at the low of the S&P, it had shed $9.8 trillion in April, almost entering bear market territory. And it's nearly now recovered all of its losses. And just look at the markets. You see the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ on your screen. That dramatic V-shaped drop and then recovery. I was talking to a chief investment strategist, Sam Stovall of CFRA, who told me that usually it takes about 4 months for markets to enter the low and then another 4 months for a recovery to get back to even. That happened in half the time. So it really is remarkable. And essentially investors, what they have seen is that after the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs and after the tariff rates on China were reduced from 145% to 30%, they really believe believed that the fear of a recession was taken off the table and that maybe some of these tariffs had more bark than bite. And also, Boris, just recently, the conflict in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. Well, what happened over the weekend was that the U.S. took out nuclear sites in Iran. And so Wall Street woke up Monday morning and they were relieved. Investors were relieved. So you saw a little bit of a relief rally happening today. But we're watching down to the last minute to see if the S&P will hit a new record today, Boris.
Yep, because it turns out when you're implementing trade policy and it's going to have market impacts, you cannot operate on a 24-hour news cycle. It turns out, and you guys know I hate when people say this because it makes a lot of us sound like crazy people, but it turns out there might have been a plan all along, kind of like we told you. So if you guys panic sold when the market dipped, like many of us told you not to do, you probably lost a fair bit amount of money. But if you did what everyone tells you to do and buy the dip, it turns out you're probably living on easy street. Living on easy street right now. If you bought Tesla at the dip, let's pop this. Let's see, Tesla. If you bought Tesla at the dip back in March, at $222 a share, you will have gone up. You will have gone up from that major dip following the protests. You will have gone up from $222 to $350. That is damn near a 50% increase in just a couple of months. If you panic sold, I don't really know what to tell you. The same thing is true of NVIDIA. NVIDIA, year to date, boom, up 13% year to date. At its lowest, it was just under $100. Today it sits at $160. You panic buy, you panic sell, you lose. Nothing you can do about that. We told people not to do that. We did. We did. The S&P 500 has bounced back better than ever before. That's my good news to finish off the day, guys. Have a phenomenal weekend. Will Johnson is coming up next right here on this network. Make sure you're following rumble.com/LFATV. My 401k is through the roof. Pa-pow. Guys, until Monday, everybody, stay loud.